Welcome back to Learning Clinic on CKLU 96.7 FM. I am your host, Bob Kerwin, and we're going to take a little bit of a different approach for the final session this afternoon. We're not looking at anybody that's running for council or mayor. We had a candidate for Ward 3 and Jesse Gadet, and we had a candidate for mayor, Jeff Huskillian, and now we have not a candidate, but we actually have a president of Cambrian College, Bill Best, who is in the studio today. And just before we get with Bill, just want to remind everyone that today is kind of a significant day for me. I'm kind of thrilled that this is the 6th anniversary of the day, August 25th, 2008, that CKLU went online. Actually flipped the switch and we started streaming. And the switch was actually flipped on the Learning Clinic on that day, August 25th. So I've got the picture and the historical record that when we started sending CKLU across the world, it was during the Learning Clinic. And ironically enough, I was actually doing a phone interview with somebody who was down in the Toronto area doing a cross-country bike tour to raise money for cancer. So that's significant, little tidbit. But this afternoon, what we want to find out is, a bit about Bill Best, who is the new president of Cambrian College, and find out a little bit more about Cambrian College and some of the direction and some of the goals and vision that we have for Cambrian as a community college and as one of the leading education institutions in, I wouldn't say Sudbury for sure, but Cambrian's got a pretty broad reputation around Northern Ontario and around the province. So, Bill, welcome. Can you tell us who is this new president of Cambrian, Bill Best?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show, and I wasn't aware of the anniversary, but it's always great to celebrate milestones, so congratulations on that. 6 years on the web is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, started streaming on August 25th, 2008. Yeah.
Much bigger audience in terms of who and accessibility, so I think that's great.
Yeah.
So a little bit about me. So I'm a Maritimer. I hail from Nova Scotia originally. And then, as I like to jokingly say, I met a wonderful young lady from New Brunswick and immigrated there about 20 years ago, and we've been happily married ever since. So I'm moving here with my wife and 3 children, 16, 14, and 10. So not only will I be integrating into the greater Sudbury region as myself and into Cambrian, but also I'm bringing a family, which right now we haven't quite moved into our house yet, so we're living in a hotel. We just moved out of the residences, so as students are beginning of the year moving into residence, we were sort of bugging out and moving out. So
it's going to be funny. Some people can say they bumped the president out of the residence.
Well, absolutely, that's exactly what happened. We were given a drop-dead date to get out, and we got out. So it's as they say, it's always about the students. But overall, my background, I'm a teacher by heart. I love the classroom, love everything about it. I believe that what we do in post-secondary education is ultimately important. You may hear me say, almost to the point of not wanting me to say anymore, as being in Sudbury, is I think that education solves the ills of the world. And the more things we can do to promote it and have people be able to better understand what those options are and the pathways, the better the society will be. And so a lot of what I'm about is engaging more students into post-secondary education, of course, ultimately finishing high school and having that commitment. And I really believe that that's about making sure they understand where the pathway to success will lead. And a lot less about competition amongst post-secondary institutions, but rather in a perfect world, my perfect world would be is that there'd be collaboration amongst institutions locally, regionally, provincially, nationally, with a commitment to making sure that individuals understand what the different pathways are, what the right choice is to make that direction in their future, and then we actively make sure that they're able to pursue that, both economically, both socially, and from the educational pursuits. And if I just, idealistic perspective maybe, but I think if we can pull that off, then I think the world's a better place.
Aren't we moving in that direction? Like we're not there, but I think everybody's kind of moving toward that end goal.
Yeah, I would agree, you know, my career in post-secondary education spanned 20 years, and I would really say the last 5 years I've seen a significant change. I think that all the players in the equation have begun to realize how significant of an impact focusing on having a well-educated population. And what I like to refer to is making sure the education that somebody takes is not terminal. So if you go into one path, if all possible, it should be able to allow you to pursue other things without starting again. And I think that whether it be universities, businesses, colleges, what have you, I think everybody's seen the value of that. And that collaborative nature is not only being spoken, you know, in the private meetings, but also in the public meetings. And I also believe our public representatives as well are starting to speak that language and understanding how we'll make things better.
We're really seeing a trend toward customized education, and interestingly enough, the young person running for council in Ward 3, Jesse Adet, is just completing his double major in political science and history. And what he's doing is he took 2 years of Laurentian, and he completed the final 2 years of his course by taking courses from Athabasca University online, which he was able to accelerate through by taking the courses, you know, online, distance education. And I see so much of even things like people taking 1 or 2 years of their university degree and then opting to Cambrian College to get a diploma so they can get into their field and then complete their, you know, it's like people are kind of planning their education now strategically to take advantage of certain things that are happening. And I've been watching Cambrian College quite a bit. I got a master's degree, you know, 3 of my kids came to Laurentian, but I was involved with, it's Everest College now, it was called CDI when I was with it. And the interesting thing about the career colleges was that they were created basically to help people who are changing jobs later on in life.
Career transition.
Yeah. So, and what interestingly was happening in the year that I was with them, because I went around to the high schools and talked to the kids, is that a lot of the younger people were seeing this career college concept as an opportunity to fast track into a career rather than to spend 3 years taking a program. It was kind of like getting them into, or they saw it as a way of getting their university and then coming in and getting that ticket to get into the job, and then from there moving on. But I'm thinking, and you must know this is a big problem, I think we had Sylvia Barnes in here one time where I remember her saying that one of the big challenges that a lot of the colleges were having was the kids would go home for Thanksgiving and they had trouble getting them to come back. That there was such a high dropout rate because people were getting into programs that they really didn't, they weren't prepared.
Well, they weren't prepared, or they didn't. I'll give you a little story that relates to one element you're talking about. Is that a lot of the times, you know, we try to make sure that people understand. Well, what's the job going to be at the end of the day? What's the opportunity they're going to have? And I remember talking to a bricklaying instructor, and this resonates so much in my head. I mean, it's been a number of years now, but I would always go around. At the time, I was in charge of a rural college, and small rural college, and so, you know, you knew everybody. You knew every person on staff. You knew every student. You sometimes even knew their parents. And so as a result, I would talk to this bricklaying instructor, and I said, you know, you had this many students, you lost one. What happened? And he looked at me and he said, "Bricks are heavy." And I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, that student did the practical for the first time, and they said, bricks are heavy, I don't want to do this." And so what it really equates is how important it is for individuals to know up front. You know, we spend a lot of time about talking about student preparedness and all that sort of thing coming out of high school, but I think it's the awareness of what it is that they would take. My experience, and very much anecdotal in nature, but having been a teacher and having had direct responsibility over teaching programs in the classroom, is that one of the beautiful things at the college level, and I presume at all PSC, is that you see students who may have struggled a little bit at the high school level, coming into the environment, and all of a sudden they blossom. And some people think, well, you know, the program must be easy. Well, it's quite the opposite. The program is very difficult, but for the first time, that student was able to put together why they were doing this, and all of a sudden the motivation and the effort, and you know, having two teenagers and I would say my third child's only 10, but she'd like to be about 24, I think, in a lot of ways.
I've got a granddaughter who's 10 going on 16 too.
Exactly. So I look at it the same way, is that, you know, I really want to make sure they understand what those opportunities are, what they need to do to be successful. And I think that when you see your child or others really like something, for the most part, they're more than happy to put the effort into it. And a lot of times, you know, success at post-secondary education, interest and effort, and those will take you a long ways.
And really, the philosophy behind Cambrian as a community college and the university as a university, I mean, they are two different philosophical approaches to the education, aren't they? I mean, you must see when people come to Cambrian that, you know, that light switches on, because it's very much preparing them for the actual marketplace.
Yeah, it's the, you know, and I think universities have a lot of current applications as well, but I know the mandate or the mantra of colleges really is about applied learning, really about the outcome of looking forth into what I would do when I'm done. And I think that that's really where the light bulb goes on. And you know, even from any perspective, and whether it's university or college, my son was interested in taking engineering, and he went to a one-day engineering prep kind of thing for people in grade 10. Came back and said, I don't want to be an engineer. And it's stuff like that's critical. And, you know, for those of you who are listening out there, you know, if you yourself are looking at post-secondary education, or you have children or friends or relatives or next door neighbors, you know, really stress having them check it out. You know, don't just go by what you're hearing in the media that there's jobs in. You know, what I always say about teaching, because it's my favorite thing, is that teaching is the best job in the world as long as you like teaching.
Yeah.
Because if you don't like teaching, it must be awful. I must say I've never had to experience not liking it, but I believe that really applies to any occupation, any profession, or any job that someone's going to pursue. You know, I don't know why this is popping into my head. My father's passed away for a while, but he used to always tell me when I was growing up, it's a long time between family allowance and old age pension, so you better like what you're doing.
Better like what you're doing, yeah. And I think that's, when we go back to the early years when the Learning Clinic was on, we had a lot of people from the business world coming in talking about their careers, and I talked to students, and we used to bring students on and talk to them. And I would tell them that when I was talking to students, when I was working with the, you know, going around to the high schools, I'd ask a student, what did you like to do when you were 10? What did you really, really like doing when you're 10? And when they tell me, I'd say, check the careers that fall within that. Because when you talk to a lot of people, and you talk to them after they've tried different careers and they finally find what they like, you ask them that question, well, what did you like doing when you were 10? Yeah, it's kind of similar to what I'm doing now. And I said, you know, if you just look for a job because it looks like there's going to be jobs out there and there's money, enjoy it for a while, but it's not going to last.
It gets old fast.
Yeah, and the difference between the generation today and my generation is that if you made a mistake and you picked the wrong career in my generation, you stuck it out till you started collecting that pension. You didn't move. You made the choice. Suck it out. Today, the kids make the wrong choice. No, I'm not doing that. start over. And it's like, oh my God, now you just put 3 years of study. Yeah, I know, but I'm like, but they're
Yeah.
not afraid to start over.
Well, they're not afraid, and the thing that I would always say is that, what I always encourage people to do, first of all, I agree with what you're talking about philosophically, and, people have the opportunity, the world's smaller, information is so much more readily available
We're
than
streaming
ever
this
was.
show around the world.
That's right, for 6 years.
Yeah.
And, the reality is that, complete it.
Yeah.
They can never take it away from you. The only sad part for me, having been involved with post-secondary education, is when somebody starts something, and they're really close. It's really sad, sometimes it's 1 semester, 3 credits,
Yeah.
kind of thing, is that, I'll tell you, if you finish it, you may never use it, but they can never take it away from you, and, it's a significant thing, so,
And I always tell people too that there's no learning experience that you will never use.
both formal and informal.
That's right. Yeah,
Absolutely.
there's no learning experience that you will never, it becomes part of who you are after you experience it. So everything you do from that point on is experience. It's like, why do people walk on a treadmill? When are you ever going to in life use that skill of walking on a treadmill? On the street, walking on a treadmill, not going anywhere?
Yeah.
Like, where are you ever gonna lift dumbbells? But it helps you do other things. And so there's no education, there's no course, there's no program, this show, to me, is a learning experience. And my life will never be the same for having met Bill Best. I don't know how, but I will never be able to say that I was exactly the same at 2:30 or 2:40 as I was at 2 o'clock. Now, that's a deep philosophical belief, but I think it's true.
I think I'm about to put my feet up on the table and
Yeah.
really reflect.
Yeah, well, it's, and I really do think that when you get into education, you really love what you're doing in terms of teaching, but there comes a time when you realize you've never taught anybody anything. You've created a bunch of learning experiences and they have learned.
Well, and I think, that's so significant about teaching, and, once again, I'm only sharing my own personal perspective and philosophy on it, but, I've always obtained great joy in seeing the students that I taught become more knowledgeable and hopefully become more successful in what I was doing, and even in the classroom, if you could create a problem that would even perplex you, and you could turn to the group and say, what do you think? And to have that confidence to not worry, well, I guess he doesn't know anything. It's quite different. I've learned over the years the ability to say, what do you think? And maybe I don't have the answer solved up.
Yeah.
The way I would describe what I think you were inferring there is that every single person that I've met have influenced what I've thought.
Yeah.
And as a result, I enjoy so much, and partly why I enjoy having new experiences is just that, is that, I've had the opportunity to move to a new community, move to a new college, where I really don't know anybody, and I have all kinds of questions, and I've got a whole group of new people that have all kinds of possible answers.
Yeah.
And to sift through those and then have an enjoyable experience, and, that's really, it's really an exhilarating experience for me.
You want to be having so much fun, you feel guilty that you're working.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's, no, and when you think about it, if you had a neuroscientist come in and explain, they would explain scientifically that yes, every single piece of information that your brain takes in has changed the structure of your brain. The neurons, the connections they are scientifically changed.
Well, and I think, the longer you live, the more you hopefully start to understand yourself, and I've been very fortunate that I've had lots of people surround me, both in my personal life and my professional life, that have had no problem telling me what they thought.
Yeah.
So as a result, it's kind of like the interesting part of it is that, I'm always up for a good philosophical debate. I'm always up for some good thought process around stuff and some banter. I enjoy that. That's probably how my classroom was like as well. However, I think the thing that I always say to people is that you might really not think I'm listening, but I'm actually processing what you're saying, and it's influencing me. And more than likely, I'm gonna be walking somewhere 2 or 3 days from now, I'm like going, okay, that's where that fits into the puzzle. And
Yeah.
you know, I was thinking, what was I doing when I was 10 that was making me? So I was thinking about that in the back of my head as we've been talking about this, and I tried to really think, okay, what did make me happy? You know, you think of all the different things about, you know, dirt bikes and beaches and all that kind of stuff that I was fortunate to be able to be involved with, but I really think the thing that pops into my mind the most is team sports. And it's kind of one of those things that I find that really formed me, is that I actually didn't play any individual sports in my whole time. It was all team sports, and you know, I think it's led to my desire to hear what other people think, and work with other people as opposed to by myself.
And that's your coaching skill, your coaching, getting a team working together. And that's exactly what you're doing right now.
Exactly what I'm doing, and you know, it's something I've enjoyed kind of on a personal side. I've had the pleasure of coaching minor basketball for the last 10 years, and taking teams in provincial championships and going down to Boston and play and all that kind of stuff. And I joked with some of the faculty at Cambrian. I said, you know, when you get to coach and you coach competitive teams, you get to select the students that or the players that you want, and so you kind of have that dream class kind of going on, and it's a great experience. But I kind of used it in my comments to the staff. I said, in the faculty, I said, well, and I got to cut the players that I didn't want. I said, well, that doesn't mean we can't cut the students we don't want, but you know, it's a much different perspective.
Yeah. And from my union background, I'd say, oh, no, you can't.
Yeah.
But no, I exactly, I hear what you're saying, and the interesting thing is when you come in and you've got a team that's already put in place that you have to now coach. I used to always tell people when I was coaching hockey, because my kids were always in hockey, I said, you know, that you want to find a true coach, put them on a house league team, where you got to take everybody that's there. Some kids don't want to be there, some kids want to be there. Anybody can coach a AAA team, anybody can coach an elite team, because if they don't want to be there, there's 5 other people that will take their spot. But you want to find a true coach, put them in a place where a lot of people are indifferent. They may not be motivated. And I think when you look at Cambrian College, and you look at the college system, to me, I think the biggest stigma is where a top student at high school says to their parents, I don't want to go to university, I want to get a diploma. And it's kind of like, how do you say, well, wait a minute now, that's not as valuable, and it's that mindset that you got to get across that, well, no, it depends what your end game is. Where are you going, and what bus is going to take you there?
Yeah, and I think, as I was saying earlier in the show, I mean, that's the key, is that, you know, it's, so number one, more education is better. In other words, the more we can have someone do it, and not all of it is formal.
No.
And I think the informal
most of it is informal.
Is once you learn along the way to the dance, that there's a lot to that. And but I would agree, you know, it's really about making sure that people understand what those options are, what they can do with their done, so making sure that they actually have an interest in it and they're not just doing it. And I think the biggest challenge for everybody is always our parents. And as I go into the time now of my kids and, you know, being an influencer and my wife being an influencer on it, and it's interesting because I look back and, you know, my parents were both teachers. And you never guess what the only thing they didn't want me to do. They didn't want me to be a teacher.
Oh, I taught. One of my sons is a teacher. I told him. But he started teaching as a second career, because he was a director of admissions for a private career college, and then decided that's what he wanted to do. So he got into teaching when he was about closer to 30. And I told him, perfect age to get in, because he wasn't afraid. And I think when you see a lot of, and I don't know, maybe you know the answer, but the percentage of people that are attending places like Cambrian College now, they're not all straight out of high school.
No, and I think, I'm not sure if this is a national study or if it was a regional study from the Maritimes, but I think it pretty much holds true. It may be swayed a little bit on some of the standard deviation, but the average age of a community college student is 27. And the
So
other,
there's a lot of them are changing careers.
yeah, changing careers, or there's a delay in career, or you know, now there's also averages are averages, right? So I mean, there's still a large percentage of students that come to college directly out of high school. But I think that what you would see in the classrooms as you walked around Cambrian is you'd see a great diversity.
It looks like a community, doesn't it?
Definitely reflective of the community. That's a great point. And that's what a college should be. And you know, kind of, you know, I just came off of, I was talking to two of the student leader presidents before I came here. And
I should have brought them on.
I probably should have, although I didn't know if I'd find my way. So it's interesting, I'm still going through them. I wonder how long this will take. And I ran into a glitch on the Kingsway, I think, yeah, the Kingsway.
Okay.
So all of a sudden I was in one lane and thought I was gonna be early, and I thought, well, I wonder if I'll make it on time.
We're flexible here.
Yeah, no, that's great. And so, you know, the reality is that when we're looking at the future of post-secondary education, we have to take all these realities into play. I mean, we need to be respectful of the past, we need to make sure we learn from the past, but we need to make, you know, you're talking about the changing of careers of somebody that's changed so dramatically. Someone's more than likely gonna have upwards of 10 potential careers by the time we're done with this generation coming out. And you know, we need to make sure that we're providing them with a background and a comfort that they're okay with change.
And you know, in many of these cases, and I'm sure that you know that, well, you know this when I talk about, they haven't been a student for a while. So it's not just that they're starting a program, they have to relearn all over again how to be a student with the technology that they didn't have the last time they were in class.
Well, and in some cases, it's with much different responsibilities than the last time they were in class.
Oh, absolutely. Can you
And,
imagine?
you know, life changes. You have to be cognizant that a large percentage of students at all PSC, to be honest, have part-time jobs, have family obligations, and as a result, you know, they're trying to make it work. And we also experience a lot of first-generation learners at college. So the first individual in their family of recent descent that has attended a post-secondary education institution.
And they have motivation.
They have motivation, but a lot of times they don't have a second shot.
Right.
Right, so they're very intent, they're very much, it needs to work.
There's a lot of stress there's a lot of stress in society, but when you're going through post-secondary education, and I mean, this is it. This is what you've been going to elementary and high school for. And when you think of all of the people you know that have made the wrong decisions or have not gotten what they wanted out of their education, the stress level has to be huge. Is there much being done at the post-secondary level to deal with or help people through?
Well, I think it's a lot different than when I went through post-secondary education. I think there's a much more awareness of the challenges that people are going through. I think there are a lot more services than there were, and I think that, you know, one of the things is a lot of the stigma has come off of it being okay to reach out for help.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really been important. I think, interestingly enough, I think you know, different people have different opinions around the power of the internet, but I think that it definitely has provided with more education, more realization, and you know, when you start to see the effects of it happening on a global scale, then it causes lots of people to be able to pause and think, okay, well, how can we do things better? So I don't know if the stress and the has increased, or if the awareness or the ability for people to able to say, you know, I need some help. I think that's become more of a comfort zone, which is good.
So this generation is more willing to reach out.
Well, and I think, you know, this generation is responding really as well to I would say even our generation's learnings, and saying that, okay, you know, how can we do better?
Yeah.
Like I say, one of the most incredible things that I find, that I remind